Good afternoon, and welcome back to the second episode of the Monster and the Lighthouse podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Goodwin, and it's a nice Monday afternoon here, Monday, September 29th. It's been a little over 2 weeks since I did my last episode, but happy to be back on the air today to do kind of a quicker one. But a lot has happened in about 2 weeks since we last talked. So that weekend, the Red Sox were hosting the Yankees for 3 games, and they ended up losing 2 out of 3 to the Yankees, but they did salvage the series finale with a 6-4 win. And now, as we speak right now, the Red Sox are in the playoffs, and they are actually going to be taking on those very New York Yankees, although this time it will be at Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. Game 1 will be tomorrow night, September 30th, starting with first pitch at 6:08 on ESPN. Game 2 will be Wednesday night. Wednesday night, October 1st, as that one will also be at 6:08. And if necessary, I believe Game 3 will be Thursday the 2nd, and that would come also with a 6:08 first pitch in the Bronx. Good news, weather is looking good for all 3 days. It's supposed to be clear here all week in Keene. So I would assume that the weather is going to be pretty similar in New York City, about 3.5 hours away. The bad news, though, is that we just found out that the Red Sox will be without Lucas Giolito, at least in the wild card round. Um, Maybe they'll have him back if they advance past the Yankees, but we'll see what happens there. Giolito apparently dealing with, I believe, elbow tightness. And it does make sense because his last few starts, we've seen the fastball velocity really tick down. It was going down to about 91, 92 miles an hour. We're even up to about 94, and I think maybe maxed out at about 95 this season. So that was concerning. And also the walks were a bit of a concern too, his last number of starts. He walked a ton of Blue Jays in his last start, although the Red Sox ended up winning that game 4-1, thankfully. Giolito's walks did not come back to bite them in that one, but it was a concern over his last number of starts. Now, the Red Sox are in the playoffs, and also the Patriots, since we last spoke. Last time we talked, they were 0-1 heading into Miami on the road, and they picked up a big win there. They went to 1-1, but then last weekend, they really struggled because they turned the ball over 5 or 6 times. I believe it was 6 times they turned the ball over. Ramondre Stevenson had 2 fumbles. Antonio Gibson had a fumble. Drake May had a fumble. And then, so it's 5 times. Drake May also threw an interception. So, a very winnable game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They lost that one 21-14. They went down early 7-0. Aaron Rodgers led the Steelers right down the field. The Steelers eventually went up 2 touchdowns, 14-0. Then the Patriots kind of hung around, and they eventually tied the game in the fourth quarter at 14 apiece. And they had the ball. They were driving. And then another fumble, I believe, led to the Steelers getting it back. And then the Steelers went down the field, went up 21-14 late in the fourth. The Patriots had the ball and were kind of driving down the field in the final minutes. But unfortunately, an ill-timed bad decision from Demario Douglas on a 4th and, I believe, 3 to try to keep the drive alive. He caught the ball short of the sticks. And instead of kind of driving for the first down, he tried to make a move, and as a result got stopped 1 yard short, only a gain of 2 when they needed 3, and the Patriots fell to the Steelers to fall to 1-2. So the up and down season for the Patriots continued until yesterday when they were back up as they took on the Carolina Panthers at home. Drake May, very good day, 14 of 17 for 203 yards, very efficient. Did throw for 2 touchdown passes, one to Hunter Henry and one when they were already killing the Panthers. I mean, they were killing the Panthers when Henry had his first. And then the other one to Matt Collins early in the fourth quarter, which made it 42-6. The Patriots would come away with a 42-13 win. And the way that game started, it was not looking good. The Patriots have not been getting off to good starts this season, really, other than the Miami game. That was really the only one where they started well. Miami, they went up 12-0, but then allowed, and then it was, I think, 15? Yeah, then they were only up by a point at half those, 15-14. The Dolphins took the lead there, and the Patriots had to come back in the fourth quarter. So with all that said, the Patriots are looking pretty good right now. They're 2-2. They have a really tough game coming up this weekend on Sunday Night Football with the Buffalo Bills over in Orchard Park, New York. That should be a tough one. I don't expect the Patriots to win that game, but we'll see what happens. Hopefully they can put up a good fight. The Bills were getting scared a little bit yesterday for a while. They are 4-0 to lead the AFC East, but they were getting scared for a little bit there yesterday against the Saints. The Saints, Spencer Rattler came in and was actually playing pretty well. The Saints are not a good football team, needless to say. The Patriots will have them in a couple weeks over in New Orleans, but nonetheless, they put up a fight against Josh Allen and the Bills for most of the day. And then finally in the fourth quarter, the Bills were able to kind of pull away and hang on for the victory to go to 4-0. So the Patriots have that coming up for them. But through the month of September, they'll finish the month at 2-2. Not horrible. It's a little unfortunate because it feels like the way that Steelers game went, you really could have been 3-1. Obviously, the Raiders game in week 1 was kind of ugly, and especially in that second half, they came over with the loss. But the second half against the Steelers, that was such a winnable game. And all those turnovers, it really stinks because Drake May has certainly over these last 3 games, really since week 2 against the Dolphins, has really looked good and seems to be improving. And I know that the Carolina Panthers are not a good team, but they did beat the Falcons 30-0 the week before. So it just shows you that the NFL right now, there's a lot of parity. The Falcons yesterday took down the Commanders, which really was surprising. But, it just shows you that the NFL, especially here this year in 2025 and going back really the last few years, has been such a week-to-week kind of league. You never really know what's going to happen. I mean, even the Patriots last year, as awful as the Patriots were in 2024, they went up to Orchard Park and actually played a tight game in late December against the Bills. So, I mean, you really never know what can happen in this league week to week. The Patriots are 2-2. We'll see. Drake May actually got off to a pretty good start last year down in up in Orchard Park. But this year, we'll see what happens. He didn't start their second game against the Bills, which was actually the season finale last year at Gillette. That was Joe Milton, but the Bills rested much of their starters, and the Patriots actually came away with the victory in that one. Mainly because the Bills rested everybody, but, Joe Milton did look good for that one game. All right, I feel like we're all over the place here on this Monday, but kind of going back now to the Red Sox. So they finished their season. Again, the last time we kind of picked up this show today with the last time that we had talked about them. They lost 2 out of 3 in that series to the Yankees. But we'll take a look kind of at what they did down the stretch as we get ready to start the playoffs tomorrow night in the Bronx. And, of course, tomorrow night it will be Garrett Crochet going against Max Fried. So both teams, not a surprise in game 1 of the playoffs, throwing their aces out there. Obviously, Garrett Crochet was very good this season for the Red Sox. A huge pickup. I mean, without Garrett Crochet, the Red Sox are probably not in the playoffs without 2 players. You have Garrett Crochet is number 1. You could argue number 2 is Roman Anthony, who's obviously hurt. But then maybe number 3, but I would still say definitively the number 2 player who the Red Sox would not be in the playoffs without is Trevor Story. And Trevor Story has had a career year here this year in Boston. He's done this year what you were hoping he was going to do when you first signed him in 2022 going into that season. He's been healthy all year. That's been huge because the previous 3 years he was not able to stay healthy. 2024, he got off to a pretty good start, but then got hurt in Anaheim and then was just, he did come back, I think, late in the year, but obviously far too late. I mean, it was like mid-September when he came back and they were already pretty much out of it. So, yeah, I mean, this year, a lot different, was able to stay healthy. But, this has been a very up and down Red Sox season. There have been a lot of positives, especially since Roman Anthony came up, since really early June. Ironically, well, I guess you could say since mid-June when they traded Rafael Devers, it was June 15th that they dealt him. Actually, Father's Day, they traded away Rafael Devers. Really odd decision, it felt like at the time, but it ends up paying off for the Red Sox. Uh, and the Giants, on the other hand, with Rafael Devers, they finished 10 games under 500 and they missed the playoffs. So, I mean, well, not 10 games under 500 overall, but with Rafael Devers in their lineup, their overall record was 10 games under 500. So the Giants completely fall off a cliff. They actually, I believe today, fired their manager, Bob Melvin. So yeah, their year is done, and surprisingly too. I mean, now they're going to have Rafael Devers next year for the full season, but man, really, really surprising. So let's take a look anyway. Since that Yankees series, since the last episode we did, the Red Sox lost 2 out of 3. They lost the first 2 to the Yankees. They were able to salvage the finale of that series on Sunday the 14th, 6-4 on Sunday Night Baseball. 6 runs to the Red Sox in that first inning, and Garrett Crochet actually did not have his sharpest outing. He did allow, I think, two or three home runs, but the Red Sox were able to hold on 6-4, even though they didn't score any runs from beyond the first inning. And then the Red Sox had the A's at home at Fenway. That was a series you thought that the Red Sox would probably at least win 2 out of 3. But the A's took 2 out of 3 from the Red Sox. So they won that opener on the 16th. The Red Sox did rally for a walk-off win on September 17th the next night, which was, I think, their 11th walk-off. They finished with 12 on the season, and we'll talk about their 12th in just a few moments. But then, the finale on September 18th, which I think was a day game, they lost 5-3 with Brian Bale on the mound. They get down early. They clawed their way back into the game, but the A's were able to hold on in the end. So then you had the final road trip of the season for the Red Sox, and it was a big road trip. They went down to Tampa Bay in the final home series for the Rays at Steinbrenner Field. And I just want to say, off the cuff, man, it has been such a weird season for baseball because you had 2 teams playing in stadiums that were minor league parks this year. First, you had not Oakland A's anymore, the homeless A's, as they call them, playing in Sacramento, AAA stadium for the San Francisco Giants. I believe it's the Sacramento River Cats. And then you had the Rays playing in the Yankees spring training stadium, which is in Tampa, right in the city of Tampa, Florida, unlike the Rays who usually are in St. Pete at the Trop. But then you also had, but it's also the single A stadium for the Tampa Tarpons. So that's one of the Yankees single A clubs. I believe they're low A. So you had the Rays playing there all year, and the Red Sox did the job in Tampa Bay. They took game 1, 11-7. Game 2, they rallied in the 9th inning when tied at 3. They scored 3 in the top of the 9th and won that one 6-3. And then they did falter in the final game of that series, so they were not able to sweep last Sunday, losing that one 7-3. But still a very winnable game up until the end when the Rays got 3 in the bottom of the 8th and basically put that game to bed. So that's another pivotal thing before we talk about the next series, their final road series, which was up in Toronto. And the Red Sox played tremendously against the American League East this year. They had winning records against 3 of their other 4 teams. The only team they didn't was the Blue Jays, but they ended it, as we'll talk about, on a high note. And that was key. I mean, you look back at their last few years, especially 2022, they were awful against the AL East. 23, I don't think they were that. I think they were about 500, but still not great. Last year, they were, I think, a little bit better against the AL East. They might have had a winning record, but not by much. And this year, they wiped the floor with the AL East. I mean, 8-5 against the Orioles, 9-4 against the Yankees, and 10-3 against the Rays. I mean, so, and the Rays are a team especially that had given you trouble for really since 2019. It was just a team the Red Sox could not beat. And I mean, the Rays did have some good teams. They had some teams that went to the playoffs, but really didn't do anything. But that was just a team, especially in Tampa, that the Red Sox could not take care of. And it was a problem. But this year, at least the year that the Rays were at Steinbrenner Field, the Red Sox certainly took care of that problem. And they kind of exercised those demons, at least for a year. They went 10-3 against the Rays. Now, I think the Rays finished 77 and 85, so they were not a good team this year, obviously. But yeah, I mean, they did the job, and they did the job against them at Fenway too. So now, anyway, we turn to the final road series, which began this past Tuesday, last week. Red Sox go to Toronto. Game one, they take it 4-1. Uh, they got off to a quick start. I think it was a RBI single for Nathaniel Lowe. Actually, Nathaniel Lowe had one ended up being the RBI hit in the top of the sixth to put him in front 2-1. And Carlos Narvaez with a 2-run double in the top of the sixth, which pushed it to a 4-1 lead. The Red Sox would hold on by that score. And man, Carlos Narvaez, a red hot start to the season through the months of like June and July, really was just tearing the cover off the ball. And then late July and early August comes and he really cools off, but he heated up at the right time, gets you some big hits in the Blue Jays series. And as a result, we're going to be talking about you went to the playoffs. So game one, 4-1 Red Sox. Game two, 7-1 Red Sox. That one, they were in really full command from the get-go. They went up 3, I think, in the first inning against Max Scherzer right away. And then you had Garrett Crochet on the mound, so you were feeling pretty good about that one with the early lead. And Crochet shut the Blue Jays down. The only run the Blue Jays scored, I think, was in the bottom of the ninth, and it was a solo shot from Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, which you were already up 7. That made it 7-1. Big deal. And then the final on Thursday, the Red Sox, at that point, their magic number was down to 1 because the Astros were getting smoked by the A's over in Sacramento. And you owned the season series against Houston this year. You went 4-2 against them. Houston was, at one point in the year, it just shows you how long the baseball season is. But at one point in the year, Houston was looking like they were going to be a playoff team again. They didn't have Yordan Alvarez, who missed most of this year, which was, yes, a big loss. But they get Yordan Alvarez back kind of in, I think, August, and they didn't do anything with it. And Houston kind of chokes away a playoff spot and in the end misses the playoffs for the first time since 2016. So the Red Sox take advantage of the Astros sliding. The Detroit Tigers, who we're going to talk about, who the Red Sox finished up the regular season with, they also are slipping mightily. And once we get through that series, I'm going to talk about kind of my playoff predictions, at least for the wild card round. Obviously, I'm not going to go through the entire playoffs because whether the Red Sox are still in it or not after this week, I do want to talk about the MLB playoffs, and I want to talk about, if the Red Sox are out, I want to talk about kind of their plan of attack for this offseason because Pete Alonso just announced yesterday after the Mets' historic collapse of their own, and they missed the playoffs, he's going to be opting out of his contract after this year, much like Alex Bregman, and we'll be testing the free agent market once again this year. So I really hope that the Red Sox this time get Pete Alonso. Not saying they will, but I hope they do. Anyway, so final series, the Red Sox, or final game of the Blue Jays series, the Red Sox magic number all of a sudden is down to 1. They have a chance to clinch it out in Toronto with a sweep of the Blue Jays, and you don't even have to worry about anything for the final series of the regular season. And for a while, it was a scoreless game, neither side giving in. The Blue Jays went with a bullpen game, too, but their bullpen was able to shut down the Red Sox for the most part. And then finally, the bottom of the sixth, the wheels fell off for Brian Bayo, who's on the mound for the Red Sox. A grand slam from Dalton Varsho is all the Blue Jays needed, and they score 6 in the bottom of the sixth to take a 6-0 lead. Red Sox would get one back, I think, on an RBI double from Trevor Story in the top of the 7th, but that was it. And the Red Sox fall 6-1. So they head to the final series of the regular season, or we were viewing it at the time, could have technically been the final series of the season because the Red Sox had not clinched yet. And the Red Sox host the Detroit Tigers, who literally just a week and a half before this series began, this was looking like a worry for the Red Sox because the Tigers were really all season were a dominant baseball team. They were leading the AL Central for most of the year. And the Red Sox went there down way back in May, kind of middle of May, to Detroit, and they got swept by the Tigers. So you were kind of looking at that series worried. But Not so much because the Tigers have been faltering big time and had really been slipping in the standings. And all of a sudden, Detroit needs these games to even make the playoffs, let alone win their division. So Cleveland had come all the way back. The Guardians had passed them. And all of a sudden now, Cleveland's in the lead of the AL Central. Not only did the Tigers need the Guardians to lose and them to win to regain the lead and win the Central, they need to get into the playoffs. They're not even in the playoffs at this point either. So they need to get in as a wild card team. And in the first game, it was off to a good start. Now, Detroit did win the final game of that series in Cleveland. So they avoided the sweep going into the weekend series against the Red Sox. But it was looking good for Detroit. They got off to a good start. It took them a few innings, took both teams a few innings, but they got off to a good start against Kyle Harrison of the Red Sox. They scored 3 in the top of the fourth, and that does the day for Kyle Harrison. The Red Sox are not playing around. Alex Cora goes to the bullpen. Of course, this being an opportunity for the Red Sox to get into the playoffs, he's not going to mess around, so he goes right to the bullpen. They throw pretty much most of their bullpen at the Tigers, and credit to their bullpen because the Tigers had already put up 3 in the top of the fourth. They had second and third and nobody out after a 2-run double from, I think, Jahmai Jones. And they have a chance to really put this game away. They score 2 more, even 2 more runs in this game, and it's pretty much over. Puts it 4-0, 5-0. But Justin Slayton, a high leverage arm for the Red Sox, who's battled a lot of injury this year, comes in and slams the door on that, gets 3 outs, and does not allow another run in the top of the fourth. And looking back, that is a huge moment in the game because the Red Sox come right back in the bottom of the fourth. An RBI single after a leadoff double from Alex Bregman. RBI single from Masa Yoshida, who has really turned up the heat in the month of September, especially these last couple of weeks, after he was doing absolutely nothing for this team for the most part. He comes through with an RBI single. Alex Bregman scores, makes it 3-1 in the bottom of the fourth. The Red Sox offense does nothing for the next few innings, but they also, once again, their bullpen holds strong and holds the Tigers offense to nothing more. So it stays 3-1 going to the bottom of the seventh. And you got a guy on first. And I believe it was a leadoff single for Masa Yoshida once again in the bottom of the seventh off of Casey Mize, who at that point it really looked good. He was pitching a great game for the Tigers when they needed it. So, yeah, Mize gives up a leadoff single to Yoshida. Then he gives up. Then it's a line drive to first base for Romy Gonzalez, but unfortunately, right at Spencer Torkelson for the Tigers, who's able to make a nice play. Fortunately, Yoshida was not too far off of first base, so he didn't get doubled up on that line drive. So he remains at first. Casey Mize still in against Ceddanne Rafaela, who grounded into a double play earlier in the game, but instead he sends one off of the Green Monster in left field. And all of a sudden, the Red Sox have second and third and 1 out, and they're knocking on the door of potentially tying or even taking a lead in the ballgame in the bottom of the seventh. And you have Nathaniel Lowe coming up next, who's been a really nice pickup for the Red Sox. They picked him up mid-late August. He's been a really nice pickup. He was released by the Nationals because he had not had a good year there. But ever since joining the Red Sox, he's done a really nice job platooning at first base with Romy Gonzalez and has been coming through with some clutch hits. Now, he did record an out as the Tigers brought in Kyle Finnegan, who's kind of been one of their closers. They picked him up in the trade deadline for the Nationals, and he's done a really nice job for them this down the stretch. But Kyle Finnegan gives up a sac fly to Nathaniel Lowe. Yoshida scores from third, so that makes it 3-2. Unfortunately, the Red Sox not able to drive in the next run. I think Abreu grounded out to end the inning. But they cut it to a 1-run game all of a sudden. It's 3-2 heading to the top of the eighth. Garrett Whitlock, nasty in the top half of the eighth inning. He gets the Tigers in order. He's just been incredible out of the bullpen this year for the Red Sox. And it's been so big because really the last few years, the Red Sox have toyed around with Garrett Whitlock as this idea of him being a starter, and it has not worked out. He's been hurt. Even when he's been a starter, he hasn't been nearly as effective, especially after from the third inning on. So it's been, they put Garrett Whitlock this year back in the role that he needs to be in, and that's a high leverage reliever, back end reliever, a guy that can come in the seventh, eighth inning in a tie ball game, or even when you're winning by a run, slim margin of a lead, get a big 1, 2, 3 inning, set it up for Aroldis Chapman in the ninth. And he's done a great job all year of doing that, and he did it again in the top of the eighth against the Tigers. He shuts them down, keeps it 3-2. And then the bottom of the eighth, it gets off to a good start. I believe it was, a little bloop single for Carlos Narvaez to lead off the bottom of the eighth. Then they pinch run Nate Eaton, who's been really just a nice little fill-in player this year with all the injuries the Red Sox have had. They've platooned him. He's been kind of up and down all year between AAA and the pros. But when he's been up at the major league level, he's made an impact. And Alex Cora substitutes Narvaez for him for his speed on the base paths. And right as you're expecting, I mean, Eaton goes and he steals second base. A bad throw from, I think, Dylan Dingler, was the Tigers catcher behind the plate. It hits off of Lowe's hand and goes into the outfield. And next thing you know, Eaton alertly gets to his feet and runs to third. All of a sudden, you got a man at third, nobody out for Jarren Duran. And Duran, of course, comes through. He pokes a base hit into left field. And Eaton scores, and all of a sudden, this game is tied. Now, you're thinking at that moment that you could send Duran, and all of a sudden, you might have an opportunity to take the lead in the bottom of the eighth. But unfortunately, Trevor Story, who's, again, been so good for this team this year, but unfortunately grounds into a double play, and that basically squashed that effort. And then you head to the top of the ninth, and of course, who do you throw out there? You throw out your closer, who's been ridiculous this season, Aroldis Chapman, and not the start that you were expecting from him, because he actually gives up a leadoff double to Justin Henry Malloy, of all people. And then Gleyber Torres, who over his career, it just feels like has been a Red Sox killer for most of his days with the Yankees. He's come up with a lot of big hits, but now with the Tigers in his first season there this year, and he grounds out to first base. But of course, even with an out from Torres, it's still a productive out as he's able to move. I forget who, I think Zach McKinstry was the guy they pinch ran. They moved him down to third. So all of a sudden, Chapman's got to get two big strikeouts, and he punches out a couple of Tigers back-to-back for huge punch-outs. I think it was Wenzel Perez he gets for the first one. He fell behind 2-0, but then blew him away, got a couple foul balls with a couple really fast, pitches, fast fastballs. And then he puts them away with a slider that actually broke out across the plate. And if Wenzel Perez had been looking for it, probably could have lined it into center field for a base hit. But he wasn't, and as a result, he gets fooled on it, and he swings and misses. And that's the end of that at bat. He strikes out Perez, a huge strikeout for out number 2. Of course, McKinstry doesn't advance. And then you get Torkelson, who's actually had a very nice year for the Tigers. Definitely his best season in a Detroit uniform this year. But Torkelson punches out also on a nasty slider from Chapman that he was not looking for. He was looking for a heater as Chapman threw him 2 heaters to get ahead 0-2. I think he fouled both of them off. And then he swings and misses on just a nasty slider to put him away. And that ends the inning, and the Red Sox go to the bottom of the ninth with a chance to win it and punch their ticket to the playoffs, and that's exactly what they did. The Tigers brought out, it was longtime Yankee Tommy Kahnle, who's much like Gleyber Torres, another longtime Yankee. They bring out Tommy Kahnle, who has not had a very good year out of their bullpen. Had an ERA, I think, in the mid-4s. He was like 1-4 going in. But Kahnle, though, gets the first out. He gets Yoshida to ground out. And then Romy Gonzalez, who's just been such another unsung player on this Red Sox team this year, bloops a little single into right field, right center. So you get a one-out man on. And the exact guy that you want up at this moment, Ceddanne Rafaela, who has really scuffled since the All-Star break, but still has a knack for big moments. And he sends one off the center field wall just over the glove of the outstretched Parker Meadows in center field. It hits off the wall, Romy Gonzalez all the way around first, scores, and the Red Sox walk it off once again in the Fenway Greens. Their fifth walk-off this season in the Fenway Greens, or maybe it was the sixth, I can't remember. But every single time that the Red Sox have won at home on Friday nights in the Fenway Greens, it has been a walk-off. And once again, they do it again to punch their ticket to the playoffs. And it delays Detroit's playoff hopes for another night. I'm going to quickly breeze over the next two games because they're not as relevant. The second game, the Tigers win 2-1. I think a 2-run single from Jahmai Jones gave them the lead after they trailed by 1. The Red Sox rested a lot of their starters that game, so that's why I don't really call it as important a game. I mean, Connolly early got the start, and he really didn't look horrible, just that 2-run single, so he does get the loss. The Tigers, as a result, punched their ticket to the playoffs and are celebrating at Fenway, ironically enough, the night after the Red Sox were celebrating in their clubhouse. But it's kind of a muted celebration because the Tigers, at one point this season, were looking like a team that could maybe make the World Series and maybe even win the World Series back in May and June, but that is not the case anymore. I think they're going to get bounced, but we'll get to that in just a moment. And nonetheless, the final game yesterday, the Red Sox bring up a spot starter. It's the 33-year-old Jose De Leon from AAA, who had actually pretty bad numbers in AAA, but actually threw a pretty nice game yesterday. And the Red Sox come away with a 4-3 win as the Tigers scratched Skubal from the start, of course, who was originally going to start on Sunday, but doesn't need to now that the Tigers had clinched the playoff spot. So they bring in Chris Paddock, whom they acquired at the deadline from the Minnesota Twins. And Chris Paddock has not had a good year. And once again, he did not have a good start yesterday. The Red Sox beat up on him, although they hang on to win kind of a tight one once again, much like the first game, 4-3. So that wraps up the regular season. The Red Sox finish at 89-73, and they get the 5th overall seed in the American League, the second wild card spot out of 3. Of course, the Yankees finished with the top wild card spot, Red Sox second, and the Tigers squeak in at third at 87-75. So that brings us to the first series, the Red Sox and the Yankees. Of course, we mentioned at the top of the show, Red Sox and Yankees from from Yankee Stadium. Best of 3 wild card series. Game 1 tomorrow night. It'll be Garrett Crochet against Max Fried. How do I think the series will go? I don't want to sound homerish, but I am going to go out and say I think the Red Sox do win this series. Now, I don't know if it's going out on a limb because the Red Sox have played well this year against the Yankees. And even though it's at Yankee Stadium, they've also played well at Yankee Stadium. They, I think, they played 7 games there this year, and I believe they went 5-2. So, they won the first series in a best of 3 back in June. And then they won the second series in late August. They took 3 out of 4. So I think the Red Sox can win this series, and I am going to say they're going to win this series. I think it's going to go 3, but I think they're going to come out on top and beat the Yankees. Now, in the other American League wildcard series I alluded to just a few moments ago, it is a divisional series, much like the Red Sox-Yankees. It's the Tigers going to take on the Cleveland Guardians, so an AL Central matchup. And all 3 of those games, 3 if necessary, will be played in Cleveland. And I like the Guardians in that series. I don't think the Tigers, yes, I know the Tigers did get into the playoffs. They did not quite finish off what would have been like a tremendous collapse, but I don't think they're getting in. I don't think they're getting past the wild card round. I think Cleveland will take care of them. Cleveland doesn't have a lot of offensive firepower, but they have been playing very good baseball lately. You contrast that with the Tigers, who've been playing horrible baseball lately. And I say Cleveland comes out on top in that series. I want to say Cleveland's going to sweep. I want to say they're going to win the first 2 games and it's going to be over, but I do maybe see it going 3. I see the Tigers maybe eking out a win, but I still think Cleveland is going to win. I just think the Tigers have totally run out of gas here in the month of September, and I think their season is just about over. I don't think they're going far at all. They did make the playoffs. They did, again, manage to stave off what would have been a Mets type collapse in the second half of the season, but they just barely squeak in, and I don't think they're doing anything with it. I don't think this team is nearly as dangerous as it was last year, which is funny to say because at the beginning of this year, it was looking like the Tigers were far more dangerous than they were even last year. I mean, they were looking like they were just a gritty team. They were a team that didn't have a lot of power necessarily, but they would find a way to grind out wins, and they were a tough team to beat. But none of these games are in Detroit, and I think that as a result, Cleveland is going to win the series. I just think they've been playing far better baseball lately. The Tigers, again,